Hey there, everyone. Ervin here, bringing you a breakdown for the FAF-14 Spear in Helldivers 2. This support weapon has been around since launch and been something most Helldivers will have likely given a try at some point, only to enter into a very serious love-hate relationship with its finicky targeting system. Arrowhead managed to fix the targeting, but then removed its ability to destroy spawners for a patch. They fixed that and made it crash your game for a patch. Now, finally, at long last, the spear has found its way into a very consistent and usable state, undergoing zero balance adjustments besides an ammo patch, simply being made to function reliably after all of this time. So, how good is it now? Let's take a look at its technical specifications, target effectiveness, and damage breakpoints to find out. As is the case with all of my breakdowns, all thoughts on viability and testing was performed on difficulty 9 Helldive, giving you the most accurate information on how these weapons hold up in the endgame. The FAF Spear is likely very heavily inspired by the real world Javelin weapon system, as just like the FGM 148 Javelin, the Spear is a medium to long range fire and forget missile launcher that locks onto heavily armored targets and structures before being loosed slowly out to a safe distance in front of the user before the main rocket motors ignite, rapidly accelerating the missile upwards before descending down on the target. They certainly wore their inspiration on their sleeves with this one, and who could blame them? Javelins are pretty badass. The spear, being what is effectively a javelin missile launcher, locks onto a very specific, appropriate list of targets, which it actually does lock onto them now, very reliably. I have yet to have any complaints with the locking system as of this patch, besides how it is still capable of locking onto brute commanders and scout striders, which sometimes get in the way of what you actually want to hit. You also want to be aware that the spear is probably not the best support weapon to bring to dense jungle planets, as the trees do have a tendency to catch your missiles mid flight. This lock on takes roughly a second and a half to perform before the missile leaves the tube at a slow 70 ms, before the rocket motors ignite, causing it to fly upwards, then down into the locked target. This can be manipulated in many ways to cause the missile to fly around corners or into weak points, as we will cover later. The approved targets for the spear are the Bile Titan, both forms of charger, Shrieker nests, Spore spewers, hulks, tanks, cannon turrets, gunships, dropships, and factory striders, as well as both the bug hole and the fabricators. And also, unfortunately, the brood commander and scout striders, as I mentioned, would not mind if these were taken off the list. The spawner destruction part has always been the most exciting bit about the spear, as it is able to destroy them from any angle with no interaction whatsoever with the vents, thanks to its Class 8 armor penetration and 40 demolition force, which is more than enough to detonate spawners. Fabricators next to both detector towers and jammers can also be destroyed, causing a chain reaction from any distance away, which can render these objectives trivialized. The utility of bringing a spear into an automaton blitz mission where you can sit comfortably on high ground and destroy the entire map with a resupply handy is reason enough on its own for many to take the weapon along. This utility is truly an unbeatable convenience now, with the lock on actually being functional. It is important to note that the missile will fly straight for roughly 30 meters before the targeting takes hold, and it swerves towards the locked target, meaning you need a comfortable distance from the target if your intention is to actually land your shots. Firing too close can have serious consequences, as the missile will either sail off, missing the target entirely, or even potentially loop back around and strike you instead. These missiles also pack a massive punch, dealing a whopping 1,000 ballistic damage with an armor class of 8 on a good angle, scaling down to 6 on a bad one, as well as 200 explosive damage dealt within an inner blast radius of 1.5 meters, then outer blast radius of 3 meters, dealing 199 to 0 damage, fading entirely by the outer ring. The inner explosion penetration value is 5, the outer radius is only 4, however, for the explosion. The overall result of these missiles is an instant kill under the right circumstances for any of the targets on its list, except the Factory Strider. You realistically couldn't have asked for more than that, so full marks for damage here. The stagger force and pushing force on the impact itself has a value of 50 and 25 points, while the explosion carries a stagger force of 60 with a pushing force of 70, fading across a shockwave radius of 6 meters. These are all extremely high values, so expect anything not outright destroyed by a spear missile to be heavily staggered and unable to immediately retaliate at the very least. This won't come into play extremely often outside of, say, missing the headshot on a Hulk or Bile Titan, where its spit may be interrupted as a result, but it is a nice feature nonetheless. This is, of course, not without its downsides, as any weapon in Helldivers 2 has. The ammo economy is abysmal, and now that the weapon can actually lock onto its targets, a total of 4 missiles on the drop while taking up your backpack slot is not sufficient. You receive only 2 missiles back from the resupply crate until superior packing is fixed, and only 1 rocket back from field crates. Generally, when calling in resupply for the spear on empty, make sure to take a box, reload, then take the next so you don't waste any of the missiles. Overall, you will be starved for missiles if you're using this on a regular basis for both utility and combat purposes. The reloading animation also requires you to be entirely stationary, assuming you have no buddy loader, which realistically you won't, because it's a mechanic that needs a serious revision, only really being viable during 20-minute defense missions. The grounded reload animation takes a whopping 5 seconds and is performed in 2 phases. The first phase ends the moment the shell leaves the tube, and the second phase ends with little to no additional frames to cancel out of, unlike the recoilless. Not much to be done but sit down and stick it out, which feels very bad in the middle of an active war zone. There is, however, a bit of tech here where if you continue to aim in with the spear during the reload animation, you can actually still lock onto targets during the reload itself, allowing you to rapidly fire off another missile the very moment it becomes available, making this just a bit more tolerable during those time sensitive, stressful situations. The reload speed, along with the lack of spare missiles, however, does leave the spear feeling much more suited for its demolition based utility than active combat. That being said, it still does do a fantastic job at taking out individual targets on its available list, so let's go over those in the breakpoint section, shall we? This breakpoint section is going to be a little different than the others. We will be going through each of the targets the spear is able to lock onto one at a time, talking about how to best connect the missile with the weak points, as all targets on this list can be taken down in just one missile with the right angle and a good hit besides the factory strider. First, talking about the tanks and cannon turrets, there isn't really any necessary trick here with the targeting. Get the lock on and let her rip. The missile will rip through the top of the tank, eliminating it no problem in one hit. Overall, a solid rapid solution to the problem as necessary. Things get immediately a bit more tricky with the gunships. While you don't necessarily need to aim or angle from any special direction to get a one shot kill here, the gunships can move at a speed that is capable of actually outpacing the turning radius of your lock on, causing the missile to miss the target. For this reason, you want to always attempt to fire the missile in front of the direction the gunship is currently hovering towards, giving you a better chance to connect with the target. The spear keeps up well enough with single gunship fabricator spawns, but will need to be run as a supplement to your team's anti air economy when it comes to patrol swarms and double fabricator spawn rates. The lack of additional ammo and reload speed definitely hurt the spear significantly when it comes to this enemy as far as its capability as an anti air answer. Dropships, if I'm being honest, are more or less a complete waste of a missile, even if you do manage to get the right angle to fire the missile into one of the thrusters for a one shot kill. Dropships very rarely actually destroy the occupants they were bringing in, and at best, may trap some of them underneath. At worst, it obstructs your allies' ability to shoot at the enemies coming out of the wreckage, while the enemies themselves continue to fire at you without any issue. On a far more useful note, the spear is able to lock onto the inactive dropships that are part of the airbase control missions, which will allow you to take those out from a very far distance away. While these can be destroyed by any Class 4 support weapon or higher, I felt it would be at least good to include this information. Hulks can be taken out in one headshot or a hit to the heatsink on the back. This does require a bit of finesse, as locking and pointing directly at the target will most often just cause the missile to impact the very top of the Hulk, leaving it alive until you can struggle through a 5-second reload to fire off another. If you hover the top of your lock on reticle above the head of the Hulk, however, the missile becomes far more likely when the Hulk is facing you to fly lower to the ground and land a direct hit on the head's hitbox for a pretty consistent one shot kill. It's good practice to also aim low on the Hulk's back should you find yourself with the angle to take out the heatsink on the back instead. In any other use case, it's likely not worth firing 2 of your precious missiles at the Hulk for one kill, so practice getting those one shots in when you can if you want to utilize the spear for combat against the automatons. The factory strider is definitely a bit of a weak point for the spear to some degree, as it is for most of our weaponry. You can lock on and destroy the cannon on top of it as a separate target, which can be valuable depending on how your team plans to approach the enemy, or if you're worried about them sniping out your generators during a 20-minute defense mission. You'll want to only launch missiles at the strider's body itself while it's looking in your general direction, though, so that you can land shots on the head. If you try to take it down through the body, you're probably going to run out of missiles first. If you hover the lock indicator right below the top of your lock-on ring, however, it is possible to break the head armor in one missile, then the follow-up missile can potentially bring the Strider down. More often than not, however, this will require 3 missiles. Instead of dumping your entire ammo supply, coordinate with teammates, though, to bring these down working alongside their support weapons. This leaves us with just the Terminids left to cover. The spear can wipe out Spore Spewers and Shrieker Nests from just about anywhere on the map you can draw a line of sight. It's not a bad idea, should you decide to pack the spear for an operation against the bugs, to bring down the resupply immediately on landing, then work your way through each of these targets from across the map, allowing you to get them out of the way early and at a relatively low cost, assuming no one needs ammo before the next resupply becomes available. Chargers for the spear are tricky. Their heads are very low to the ground, and our missiles want to go up and then come down. So typically, when firing directly at an oncoming charger, the missile is either going to fly right by due to being too close for the targeting adjustments to take effect, which is roughly 30 meters away to actually get the missile to move in the right direction, or the missile will land in its back, requiring a follow-up shot to take it down. You can manipulate it by firing at a low enough point while aiming the reticle as low as possible with the charger stationary. This will result in a one-shot kill, but frankly, this is just too many stipulations for me as far as regular use cases are concerned, and I'd much rather just have my flamethrower against these. Titans are the most satisfying takedown with the spear when you get a headshot on them to put them down for good in just one missile, although manipulating the trajectory for the missile to do so can be a bit tricky. You want to aim low as possible with the missile, so it's more likely to land in the head than the back. You'll also want to not be above your target, and you will see a greater degree of reliability when firing from either a lower position than the Titan's ground or closer to the Titan, giving the missile less time to travel above the target. In both cases, you'll be far more likely to land that satisfying money shot and bring the big fella down with no need for a reload. This is going to feel really inconsistent, and to be honest, I couldn't really get the hang of doing it reliably, nor would I want to. Upright down, down, down cures the problem with a lot less geometry. That about does it for our coverage of the spear, so how good is it? Well, in my opinion, the spear has a niche, unmatched utility and satisfying combat capability in bursts. Being able to destroy objectives from across the map from any angle is a fantastic utility to bring into just about any match, although outside of blitz missions, I certainly wouldn't bring this into a solo dive, as it's more or less variable and less than reliable combat effectiveness against key targets I could otherwise deal with much more certainly utilizing other support weapons such as the recoilless launcher or queso cannon. There is certainly a satisfaction to be had taking out Titans in one headshot with your support weapon, but being cost your backpack slot in the Terminid faction can feel really detrimental outside of defensive missions, as the personal shield, jetpack, and supply pack all provide various significant benefits against the bugs. The lack of ammo with the high volume of Hulks, Chargers, Titans, tanks, and Factory Striders, on top of wanting to utilize the spear for its utility building clear, means you will never have enough missiles and need to regularly lean on your teammates' ability to clear these enemies or otherwise assist you. The reload speed is also a very serious issue when you have more than one target or miss the chance to blow against a crucial heavy target. This leaves you extremely vulnerable until you manage to get the two-part reload off, leaving you pretty SOL most of the time. Overall, for me, the spear is a weapon I'll be making extremely regular use of against automaton blitz missions due to its extremely powerful fabricator clearing capability, but will otherwise likely choose other options in regards to all other missions except potentially against the 20-minute defense missions where I can get good value out of the Factory Strider and Bio Titan clear. Thank you for watching till the end, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
And now, another helpful tip from General Brash.
Eravin has brought us valuable insight into the best use cases for our spear weapon system. Our fire and forget missiles will now strike truer than ever at the hearts of our enemies, and for this, I am ordering all active Helldivers to like, comment, and subscribe to his channel. Failure to do so will result in the spear once again crashing your